Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Rose Report. Tonight, my guest is Augustus Lewis, chairman of the New York College Republicans. Thank you so much for coming on.
I'm happy to be here.
So I want to talk to you, obviously, because there is a college Republican controversy going on right now. So just to start off, what are the college Republicans for many people who may not know?
So the College Republicans, or specifically the College Republicans National Committee, it's a nationwide organization under which all college Republican chapters nationwide are organized. When working ideally, it's kind of a support network for individual university chapters, to get funding or get speakerships or just all around support to continue that mission. Obviously, it makes up a huge social circle on individual college campuses, but those chapters will typically work hard in campaigns, volunteer for state and local elections, and win those elections more often than not.
And for people who are not aware of what's going on, what is the recent controversy amongst the college Republican groups that's happening?
Well, I mean, this story is, goes back years at this point, where the CRNC has really kind of fallen off the horse at this point, where it has not been effective in years. We've gone through some major election cycles where it really has not been a president, hasn't been able to mobilize or efficiently utilize its volunteer base. And it's kind of come out over the past few months why that is. Now, the current outgoing chairman, Chandler Thornton, has been accused of financial crimes, actually. Right now, there are millions of dollars that are missing from the CRNC. We know now that, its ad budget and its $1.5 million budget annually, has been misused. It has not been going towards its intended projects. Over the past 4 years, we've allocated well over $1 million to advertising, and it has not been utilized in that fashion. So, it hasn't been an effective organization in a long time, but now we're seeing almost an active cover-up effort as this information has come out. We are in the middle of an ongoing election for the national chair, and a very heated battle between, Ms Britt, who is, a longtime friend of Chandler Thornton, and Judah Waxelbaum, who has been very outspoken about these issues in the CRNC. And what that has transpired into is an active effort to suppress the votes of now 11 states to prevent Judah Waxelbaum from winning this election and actually performing an audit and reforming the CRNC.
And this show did reach out to Ms Britt and Chandler Thornton for comments before this interview was recorded, and they did not respond at all. So for this controversy, this effort to sort of suppress the vote, what is that entailing? How did it come to be recently? Because I've seen it's really blown up, at least on social media.
Well, typically the process for, just to give further context, every 2 years in July, we have what's known as the biennial convention. And what that entails is all of the states send whatever delegates they're allotted, and they vote for, their executive board for the CRNC. How delegates are apportioned is every state has to submit what's called credentialing, which is almost a census report of how many chapters, how many college Republicans are in their state, and they're supposed to be awarded delegates proportional to those numbers. Every state had to submit that initially by February 1st. 22 states had their credentialing rejected, which was, an unheard of number. It's almost half the country that had their credentialing rejected by an auditing firm. We were not allowed to know what the reasons are. The national chairman himself said that the auditing firm could not disclose that information. But we had an appeal date set for June 17th, and to the best of everybody's ability, we resubmitted those appeals to try to correct the issues. And then last Sunday, July 11th, was the credential committee hearing, where a section of the CRNC Constitution was abused, something requiring letters of certification for late submissions, was basically used to suppress the votes of 11 of those states, all of which were supporting Judah Waxelbaum.
And was there an effort by certain people to do this? Was this sort of what they're saying was a process issue? What was the reasoning and the effort behind it?
Well, this has been a long-standing case, because even well before this issue with the credentialing hearing, Louisiana in particular was kind of the first target of this, where Louisiana was a very pro-Judah Waxelbaum state, and a complaint was issued against them for procedural technical issues in organizing their annual convention. It was a minor issue. And Chandler Thornton himself unilaterally expelled the organization from the CRNC. Courtney Britt oversaw this case, who was an actual candidate in this election, major conflict of interest, but greenlit that decision. So Louisiana was the first to fall. And that incident right there proves, this was a joint effort between the national chairman and Courtney Britt to affect the voter base of the CRNC and kind of curry votes towards her. And then that, of course, culminated in what you saw on July 11th.
And what is Mr. Thornton's interest in Ms. Britt winning? Is it that there is efforts that he's trying to cover things up, or is it ideological? What is the reasoning there?
I mean, one can only speculate because he doesn't comment on anything. He's a notoriously hard person to get a hold of. Even before all of this controversy happened, he has not been transparent in this organization. So, I mean, it's anybody's guess whether or not, it's to prevent an audit like Judith Waxaw has promised. Perhaps he is afraid of what might come out. Perhaps it's just out of loyalty to Courtney Britt and the Amplify ticket. I mean, who knows? Maybe it's just out of spite for those that have been critical of him and his administration. One can only guess. What is known at this point is that there was misconduct and that it's currently ongoing, and we're doing everything we can to stop it.
And where does the effort stand now? Because I've seen there have been statements released by other areas of the Federation. New York, I know, has been very prominent in pushing back. So where is everybody now? Is it sort of a closed case? Has Mr. Thornton gotten away with it?
I mean, as far as the rules within the CRNC are concerned, there isn't much that can be done at this point. I mean, this information was dropped on us, within a week of this convention. So we are continuing to try and speak to some of these pro-Amplify states, help them to see what's going on, perhaps change the outcome of this election just by, the sheer amount of votes that remain at this point. What I will say is that, thanks to a lot of the journalists that have been very curious about this, that have been publishing pieces on this, the public is very much aware of the situation, what's going on. A lot of state representatives, congressmen, elected officials who know what the college Republicans can do and know how much they matter to the electoral process. They've seen what's going on and they have been speaking out. So in the court of public opinion, the country is very much on our side in this. But as far as the bylaws and the actions of the CRNC go, it's very much an uphill battle right now.
And is the Constitution of the CRNC regularly available? Is that something that I could look up, or is it sort of shut down or kept in sequester?
And that's been another major issue. I mean, one of many that's being talked about is the CRNC Constitution, which, all of these regulations and bylaws are contained within, is not publicly available. And despite many, many, many petitions over the months by state chairs, by national committeemen to make this Constitution public, it is not readily available. So if you as a journalist or anybody who is curious about this wants to see the rules for themselves, they can't. They would have to speak to somebody on the national committee and, fingers crossed, hope that they have the Constitution and can readily send it to them.
And the platforms of Mr. Waxaw and Ms. Britt, were they very different in what they saw as the vision going forward for the college Republicans? I
mean, yes, absolutely. I mean, and of course, I'm going to come at this a little bit biased because I have endorsed Judah Waxelbaum's ticket, but I came into this election kind of late. I wasn't really speaking out about this until maybe 2 months ago, but it's been my observation over the course of this election that Judah Waxelbaum has been the only candidate that's been curious about where this money is going, who's been able to recognize the issues with the CRNC and has been prepared to actually take steps to remedy that. Judah Waxelbaum is somebody that realizes what the purpose of the CRNC should be. And I'm not convinced that Courtney Britt recognizes that at all. I mean, the damage that this electioneering has done to the CRNC, that, the complete lack of curiosity, the complete lack of support towards transparency. I mean, this has irreparably damaged cohesion of the CRNC, and it very well may undermine the CRNC's ability to mobilize voters and win these elections going forward. I mean, it has been disastrous.
And on that note of cohesion and sustainability going forward, these 11 states that are kept out of the convention voting process, are they still able to interact on a daily level and daily operation? Will they be able to coordinate with the states that are still allowed in going into 2022 and 2024?
We're hoping so. I mean, the central framework is pretty much kaput at this point. And I mean, you have states that individually that are fighting with one another. This isn't just, a Judah Waxbaum versus Courtney Britt situation. Virginia and Kansas are major supporters of Courtney Britt, and they've been very outspoken against individual states. So it's all going to depend on, whether or not people can move past this issue come 2022. We know for a fact that CRNC, is not going to be ready at this point to mobilize the effort themselves. Mm-hmm. We can only bank on the individual state federations being able to rally that support and work together.
And is there any interest from senior leadership of the Republican Party? Is former President Trump getting involved in this process? Mitch McConnell, anybody who genuinely holds serious power within the country?
I mean, it's been a very slow burn. I mean, this story has been out there for some time, but obviously, GOP leadership would be reluctant to get involved because it's Republicans against Republicans right now.
I see.
But as more information has come out, we're really starting to see the stakes of this and what damage this is doing to the country, that we are actually seeing some more Republicans speak up. Actually, just today, about an hour before this interview, Elise Stefanik did come out in support of the New York College Republicans and the Ignite CRNC ticket. I believe George P. Bush just released a statement. We've had several state level officials come out and speak on this issue. That Kelly Ward in Arizona has been very vocal about her support for restoring these voices to the disenfranchised states and the CRNC. So, I think people are starting to recognize what an issue this is. This isn't just college Republican drama. This isn't school clubs that are doing battle with one another. This has very serious implications on, the GOP's ability to win these elections in the future. And I think, more Republicans are realizing that and more Republicans are speaking out.
And I did see on social media people saying that, Ms. Britt didn't have to do this because Mr. Ruxbaum never had a chance at winning. Is that the case, or was it a pretty even field?
I mean, that's just objectively false. I mean, we had 30 endorsements for Judah Waxelbaum. I believe Courtney Britt topped off at 19. If Courtney Britt is able to win this thing, it will be with less than half the support of the country. I mean, Judah Waxelbaum had a very strong lead up until July 11th. I'm not sure who's saying that, but that's an objectively false statement.
And this meeting that happened, I know many people have been upset about. It seemed to be sort of in the middle of the night for many people. Is that the normal procedure for college Republicans? Is that sort of how it usually operates, late at night meetings, or are things usually more structured?
This is my first year on the national committee, so I can't speak to, what is regular, irregular. But I know from other national committee members that, a 3 a.m. meeting lasting 11 and a half hours is pretty far outside the norm for the CRNC, as it should be for any organization. I mean, if anybody's questioning whether or not this was a deliberate effort to, silence voices or prevent people from being available to this, I mean, Chandler Thornton released a statement speaking to how there were states that were not available to testify after having their delegates suppressed. Maybe that had something to do with the fact that it was 3 a.m. Right. Maybe it had to do with the fact that people were asleep or they had work or they couldn't be available. I mean, yes, obviously, if you set the time of this meeting so that most people won't be available to it, obviously you're not going to have a full attendance. I mean, that's a no-brainer.
Yeah, and there does seem to be a lot of confusion amongst adults about why college Republicans matters. Like you said, there's a lot of saying, well, it's just club drama. It doesn't really matter. What is the impact that college Republicans brings to each election cycle?
I mean, college Republicans are both the largest volunteer base in the GOP, but we're really the only demographic, the only group outside of maybe the young Republicans that can really be out there going door to door, making phone calls, that can afford to devote all of this time to these campaigns, right. and most often completely volunteer without pay. New York alone, we made over 250,000 voter contacts in 2020 alone, and that was during the whole lockdown fiasco. We were a critical part in over 46 elections statewide. That's New York. Take Florida, for example. I mean, I like to brag about my home state, but let's give Florida some credit. They had almost 1 million voter contacts, over almost 1 million. And if you remember, that's the state that got Ron DeSantis elected. Right. I mean, he was become one of the biggest figures in the Republican Party. That's the impact of these state elections. I mean, you have basically a presence across the state that can help out with local town council, even school board election with critical race theory. I mean, we're increasingly seeing the importance of these local races and how those can impact politics. That, college Republicans are the ones who can be everywhere and be on time and be in whatever capacity is needed to help put these people in office.
And for people who are wondering if the leadership of the Republican Party is recognizing the real danger of losing that network and that framework, do you see people aware of the level of danger, or is there still somewhere to go with the awareness of that?
I still definitely think there is much more work to be done. And look, we have worked hard. I mean, this has been such a coordinated effort to really kind of legitimize this issue and get people to understand how important it is. And I think we're absolutely making headway. I don't even think we've begun to peak yet on this issue. I think that, with Elise Stefanik coming out and giving her support, I mean, the third highest ranking of the House conference, I think more people are going to recognize what an issue this is and how that will impact the CRNC. Who knows? Maybe they lose donations. Perhaps that support shifts the individual state federations, which would be a fantastic move, I think, in my opinion. But yeah, I definitely think it's come a long way so far, but I think there is far more to go as well.
And in the conservative movement in the Republican Party, how much power does someone like Chandler Thornton have as the chairman of this organization, or whoever would be next? How much cachet do they really have?
More than they should. I mean, Chandler Thornton, he's head of the College Republican National Committee, which should obviously give him some kind of sway or some kind of leeway over how we mobilize national efforts. But we've seen this power kind of accumulate around him, especially over the past 4 years. In the New York College Republicans, we looked through all of the IRS's filings, and what we discovered was that Chandler Thornton is effectively the sole financial custodian over the CRNC's bank accounts. We have no eyes on what we're using our finances on. The national treasurer, Ty Seymour, has testified to being actively stonewalled. I mean, people have gone to him and have asked questions, and he has no access to these documents. His name is not on any of the IRS filings.
And this has been going on for the last 4 years?
Yes, it has. I mean, it's been a progressive buildup as Chandler Thornton's kind of consolidated this power. That if you think of what the role the head of the CRNC should play, it should be a spokesman, right? It should be somebody who rallies college Republicans, who inspires them and motivates them to get out there. It should be somebody who is fundraising. It should not be somebody who is picking fights with his own party, who is expelling them from the CRNC, who is actively suppressing their votes, who is distorting the Constitution to complete his own objectives and cover his own reputation. That should not be the role of somebody leading this organization. A national chairman should not have this kind of power.
So would you say, as someone in this system, that really what it came down to was that Mr. Weichselbaum was raising concerns over money and over abuses of power, and Ms. Britt was content to just go along with what Mr. Thornton wanted and just move on and not have any sort of insight into it?
I mean, I would call that a very, very accurate characterization. I remember after Judah Waxman organized a town hall, actually, to talk specifically about some of the financial issues in the CRNC. Ms. Britt released a statement of her own talking about, how she supports transparency, and in giving her own opinion on the financial issues in the CRNC. What did she talk about? I think she talked about how the key to solving the CRNC's problems was, changing the color scheme on our social media. It was worth going after, how we're advertising ourselves and maybe use more than the color red. I mean, it was something benign about how, the color scheme is the problem. We have millions of dollars missing. We have a fifth of the country that can't vote in the national convention. We have GOP leadership that is denouncing, the highest ranking college Republican in the country. Clearly, it's the color scheme. It's the problem.
Yeah, that's sort of what happens in conservative politics, often going in that realm. So in this convention process, is Mr. Thornton or the next chairman, the only person that's selected, or other officers selected? What is the process there?
Well, typically there is a whole slate that is voted on. So, you have the national chairman, you have the treasurer, national secretary, regional vice chairs. In a move I'm not sure I particularly understand, the election rules committee, which is run primarily by Amplify CRNC supporters. So, they rule in favor of whatever Chandler Thornton wants. They amended the rules this year for the first time to break the convention down in half. So they'll vote on, the chairmanship on Saturday, tomorrow, but there's supposed to be a separate convention as well later on in the month that's regional positions. They've altered the rules last minute, and I'm not sure what the strategy here is, but it's very irregular.
So would it be possible with these 11 states being taken away and all this confusion, if Ms. Britt became chairwoman, then would her people, because these 11 states could not truly vote, she would then be able to pretty much install the people that she would want in because of the lack of votes? Is that what you're saying?
I mean, effectively, when it comes down to the regional chairs, I mean, only those within that region can vote. So, the Ignite CRNC ticket still stands a sizable chance in some of these regions that have a sufficient amount of votes remaining. I know here in the Northeast, the vote is, I believe, 4-4. So, it's a tie. I have no idea how that race is going to resolve itself. But, I mean, Ignite isn't completely blocked out from this election. There are still opportunities for them to make gains, but right now, what it's looking, unless a miracle happens within the next 24 hours, that is what's looking like. That's what it's looking like is going to happen.
And what is Amplify and Ignite CRNC for people who are unaware?
So Judah Waxelbaum, his ticket. So Judah Waxelbaum is running with several other people under that ticket of Ignite CRNC, which is the National Reform Party, basically, in the CRNC, and Amplify CRNC is the name of Courtney Britt's ticket.
And were both of these tickets, did they have similar amounts of resources, similar amounts of strategists, or was one more weighted than the other?
I can't speak to the inner circles of each campaign. I know both of them have had resources put into them. I mean, I'm sure they've both received some level of financing. They both have their own website. They both have a core group of supporters. What I will say about Ignite that Amplify simply does not have is the fervor of kind of the individual state chairs and not even state chairs, just random executive board members throughout the country. Throughout this entire process, I mean, the coordination between people that may not even be active members or official members of this campaign, fighting for this or speaking out about this, promoting the Ignite CRNC ticket and speaking out about these issues. I mean, the energy behind it is like nothing Amplify CRNC could hope for.
And I was curious, from a young conservative perspective, how much ideologically does the college Republicans move the Republican Party? Because often you get one person in the field of GOP nominees or prospective nominees, and it pushes the party further right or further left. So ideologically, how much power does college Republicans have in the conservative movement and the GOP?
I wouldn't say they can exert much influence over the overall GOP. I mean, the CRNC itself is very ideologically dissonant. You have all range of people from, gung-ho MAGA, populists to kind of more moderate, Mitt Romney types where, you have a whole range of different people that, are registered under the Republican Party. Like New York tends to be more, aligned with the populist movements. But I wouldn't say there's one single CRNC position. There's no one ideology. The focus of the CRNC is less so on, rhetoric and promoting ideology as much as it is, or at least as it should, be an organization that supports other candidates and serves as a volunteer force for what the GOP decides is the platform.
And just sort of in closing, what do conservative voters and maybe local politicians and Republican politicians across the country need to be doing right now in this controversy and in this process?
I mean, the first thing is to recognize just how important, college Republican chapters and state federations are. I mean, that's the first step, and that was the first thing that needed to be done in this media campaign, was helping people recognize how crucial college Republicans are in these elections. The next thing that needs to be done is shining a light on this, realizing the CRNC is not completing this mission, and that the most effective thing for any GOP donor, any GOP supporter to do is to look state and locally. Look to your local college Republican chapters, look to your state federations. Those are the ones that you need to be supporting, not a detached national committee that has not been effective and has not won us an election in years.
And I hope this interview will raise awareness about that. And I did invite Ms. Britt and Mr. Thornton on the show to discuss this or to give a comment, and I didn't hear back from them. And that was before this interview was recorded. So thank you so much for coming on. Where can people follow you on social media?
You can follow me on Twitter, that Augustus LaRue. So that's AUGUSTUSLEROUX, all one word.
Okay, perfect. And we'll link all that below. Thank you for coming on.
Thank you very much.